So I've been playing around with different resolutions and different frame rates, shutter speeds, to try to come up with what I think is the ideal combination for my YouTube videos. YouTube kind of murders videos when with its compression algorithms, and so what looks beautiful on screen is the utter rubbish once you upload it to YouTube. It has to do with the way it works, really. If you send a massive video file up to YouTube and YouTube streamed that in a raw video file to each viewer, it would just be simply impossible. So what it does is it resamples it to the various kind of standard resolutions, and then depending on the user's bandwidth, it shifts between one of the versions and the other. So it shifts between versions of the same video for different resolutions. Because of that, the end result is never ever exactly what you get when you edit your video, so your original raw video file. And indeed, the de facto resolution these days for YouTube is 1080p, frame rate 60 frames per second, and most creators don't even bother with shutter speeds. With cameras like the GoPro and others, that is left to set to automatic most of the times, if not all of the time. So what I've been playing around with is not only resolution, ideally 4K, that's what I'm trying to do these days, 4K, but in terms of frame rate, although my camera can go up to 60 frames per second, 4K, I've played around with both 30 frames per second and 24 frames per second. 30 frames per second, I can't help but feel that it looks a bit weird for some reason. Don't know why. It doesn't look natural. 60 frames per second looks beautiful, but it doesn't look natural either, because everything is too smooth. In real life, you don't see things in such a smooth way. So our eyes are not like camera. 24 frames per second, though, kind of gives me what to me seems like the more natural type of image compared to what my eyes can see in real life. Thank you, sir. So that's why at the moment I'm filming at 4K at 24 frames per second, and the shutter speed is set to automatic. I did try, and also I have the built-in image stabilization on at the moment. Yesterday I did an experiment with the exact same settings, except that I set the shutter speed to 1/48th of a second. It worked well in terms of image quality and colors and brightness. It was spot on. However, because I had the image stabilization on as well, you could see that it became blurry at times when the camera was trying to compensate for movement, and but because it has such a low frame rate, and because it has such a small such a small shutter speed, it wasn't. It was overcompensating. So you could see that the image was too blurry every now and then when the camera tried to compensate for movement. So today I'm doing 4K, like I said, 24 frames per second, shutter speed in automatic, so it will adjust shutter speed depending on lighting conditions, and I've got image stabilization on. See how it works. I used this setting when I did my last review of the BMW C650 GT. I didn't like the end result too much, not because of the camera, but because of the lighting conditions of that day. So grey skies, not a lot of contrast, and I ended up kind of tweaking it a bit in post to get the look that I really wanted. My next step is going to redo the manual setting for shutter speed, set it to 1/48 of a second at 24 frames per second, and turn off the image stabilization and see how it works. There's a lot of traffic today. It's not usual at this time of day. Now don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with my filtering song. Not in the mood for a lot of filtering, although I'm not in the mood for sitting here waiting for these guys to move. Well, the reason why I'm choosing these sorts of unusual frame rates is because I really prefer the more cinematic look to the kind of picture perfect 60 frame per second high res look that I think is too artificial. Let's do a spot of filtering. I haven't done this in a while. Not here anyway. Filtering, filtering, filtering along. Oh, very kind of you, sir. How very kind of you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen. But this is my exit. Not going to take any more chances. Right, so back to video settings. So I'm trying to get as much of a cinematic look on my videos as I can, instead of the picture perfect high res, high frame rate look that we often see on YouTube, which seems to be the norm these days. But it's just not my thing. The thing with 4K though is that I can use it to capture as much information as I can with this very, very high resolution, and resample it to 1080p and still get a very rich image, a richer image than I would get if I was shooting straight 1080p out of the camera. But that's my only concession, really. That's why I'm bringing the frame rate as low as I can without it looking ridiculous. So hopefully this will work. I will find the perfect combination of these settings and stick to it, and make my videos as or the way I want them to be. So yeah, I went out today at lunchtime during my lunch break, took the camera out to try image stabilization whilst walking around the place where I work, because I wanted to see how. So I'm curious to see how it works. I have never done this in a, I never really tested it in a comprehensive way as I did today with various lighting conditions and various backgrounds to see how it works, because I think that built-in image stabilization is the way to go in the future, instead of buying very expensive gimbals. So with image stabilization, that's the way to go. The camera will do it all, I think. I think more the purists will say that no, camera should only do filming and leave the stabilization to a proper stabilization device, which makes sense to an extent. But for this type of usage, we're not professionals. I'm not professional. I'm not even a keen enthusiast. I'm just an enthusiast of filming. But I think that for us, built-in image stabilization is the way to go, instead of spending a lot of money on an expensive and good, decent gimbal. So I'm really curious to see how that footage came out from this morning's experiment. And that's it really for today. Haven't been on a bike too much because of the rubbish weather. You can still see bits of snow on the edges over there, for instance. So weather's been really, really rubbish in my neck of the woods, and so that has kept me that's kept the bike in really, and I haven't been out on it too much. Hopefully it will change. I have a couple of test rides booked for the near future. Planning on doing something really, really exciting in the summer, in July. I'll talk about that later. So yeah, well, as usual, thanks for watching, and don't forget the usual nonsense. Just share, like, subscribe, comment, share your thoughts, whatever. They're highly appreciated. Thank you very much, and see you on my next video. Ta-da!